A very good Friday evening, and thanks for clicking on to Vogan's European Outlook. It is the 30th of October. We're about to enter a new month, and the final month of meteorological autumn. And taking a look at the Arctic Oscillation is positive. It's expected to continue to rise into positive territory before dropping off to at least neutral. And there are some models, some members indicating it goes well into negative territory. But the emphasis over the next 5 days is going to be wind and rain across the British Isles. What we've got is we've got a very, very large wheel of low pressure, a trough that is got multiple centres of low pressure within it. And these areas of low pressure are going to continue to cycle around the base of the trough and slam across the British Isles with wind and rain and gales over the next few days. So we've got Saturday, we've got Sunday, and we've got Monday. 3 individual areas of low pressure within a 72 to 96 hour period. But there is change coming, and the change will come as we go in towards the weekend. So actually, our weather pattern, we won't see the change, if you will, until the middle part of next week. But you can, if you play the loop here, you can see that we've got areas of low pressure piling into the British Isles here, feeding one after another off eastern Canada, across the Atlantic and into the British Isles. But what we've got is we've got another trough dropping south during the day on Sunday across eastern North America. And this is the game changer, folks, because we've got a build-up of pressure upstream to the west of this trough, and that is going to set the wheels in motion for a more rippled, more amplified, meridional jet pattern as we go towards the second half of next week here. We're going to see the area of high pressure that is actually out ahead of the trough over eastern North America. That is going to ripple its way across the North Atlantic atmosphere, and eventually it will take over the British Isles weather pattern here, and we're going to see a settling down of the weather. The biggest story will be drier conditions, less wet, less windy, and of course with high pressure at this time of the year, with nights now longer than days, we're going to see colder conditions, especially frost, possible fog by night, and of course with little in the way of wind, fog that does develop during the night may have a hard time in some of these valleys and glens to disperse during the daytime, as we've got a weaker strength of sun, of course, at this time of the year. But you can see here, as we skip through, the pattern becomes more amplified. The ridge continues to strengthen ahead of the trough as it exits North America, and eventually it topples its way in over the British Isles as we go in towards next weekend. So this is Thursday, and then this is in the Friday here. You can see that area of high pressure. Notice the large area of low pressure to the west of Iberia here. So we're going to see more wet, windy, cold conditions across Iberia, across southwestern parts of Europe, and of course high pressure stuck over the British Isles. But of course you've got low pressure over Greenland, and we've got low pressure to the southwest of Spain and Portugal. So we've got this rather kind of stuck pattern at the moment. But of course that is a positive North Atlantic oscillation pattern. Now, at this point in time, we start to develop a ridge of high pressure over Europe, a ridge of high pressure over the United States, and one of the reasons for that is if we skip back to the current period, you've got a typhoon over the West Pacific. Instead of it recurving over the North Pacific, it actually goes straight west into China, and with that doing so, it then allows a more significant region to develop both over North America and over Europe when you've got that straight westerly track of the typhoon. If you have that typhoon recurving over the North Pacific, you tend to cause a build-up of pressure and actually a trough of colder air and low pressure into the eastern side of North America. But when you've got, like I said, you've got that westerly track, it then pumps high pressure over both the North American and the European continent. So it's quite easy. So skip through here. You can see here how that system goes into Asia, and then you start to see generally the 5 to 10 day period after that takes place, that's when you start to see ridging taking place over North America, and eventually over the European continent as well. So you can see that here we've got not so much in the way of cold conditions across the US like we've got now, with record heat over eastern parts, record cold over western parts. We're going to shift and turn that on its head. We're going to see warmer conditions developing over the western United States, colder conditions over the eastern states, but eventually we're going to have a more unified ridge and warmth across the US overall here, and we're going to see that region developing up into Scandinavia. But as we skip through the period, folks, this is what's going to get interesting, right? Because what we've got is that area of high pressure eventually starts to build up into Scandinavia. What that could do is start to develop more of an east or southeasterly airflow around this area of high pressure here. And there is some models that are taking this area of high pressure up into the Arctic region here, which downstream, way down, this is talking about beyond the middle of November, we could start to see the NAO and the AO turning around. So instead of it being positive, it starts to go negative. And that is going to be very worth watching here. But certainly the next couple of weeks, I think below normal temperatures across the UK and Ireland, high pressure, drier than normal conditions. And then during the second half of the month, that is what's going to be interesting. And it's just too far out to tell at the moment exactly what's going to happen. But really, this is not a west to east Atlantic driven pattern when you've got this kind of setup here, high pressure to the north of the UK. And even if there's some model indications of high pressure to the north of the UK or over the north of Greenland, you've got low pressure over Scandinavia, that would indicate more of a northerly airflow. But the general consensus is that after a very wet October and opening days to November, the weather pattern starts to shift and quieten down in terms of precipitation. We might even go below normal in terms of rainfall as we go through the month of November. But it's interesting to see the evolution of the pattern, why we're going to see high pressure, of course, next week, and it all reverts back to the Western Pacific now for what takes place a week to 10 days in advance here. So, of course, that is the general idea of my videos. It's instead of just telling you what's going to happen in a few days' time, want to look at exactly how the pattern evolves and materializes. And that is, of course, what we're going to be looking at in terms of the winter pattern here. Looking finally at the polar vortex here, this is the 10 millibar temperature profile here over the Arctic region. One emphasis I will say is the GFS ensemble at this moment in time has the polar vortex strengthening, and you can see that as we go through the period. We start to get the darker blues showing up over, particularly so over the Eurasian side of the pole. We've got the polar vortex. There's no indications at this moment in time of any type of weakening. In fact, it looks as if it kind of strengthens, but it's early days yet, and there is other factors, including the tropics that we've seen taking a driving mechanism to the northern hemisphere pattern. We've got the Madden-Julian oscillation, which is of course the enhanced convective wave that circles the equatorial regions of the world. And of course, all that activity, thunderstorm activity, transfer north of tropical energy northwards, all has an influence on this polar vortex. So things that take place in the tropics lift north, has a massive impact on the northern hemispheric pattern here. So it's going to be interesting to watch the relationship between the tropics and the high latitudes as we go through the month of November. That's it for today. Hope you have a great day. Back in the next few days with more. Bye for now.